It has now been 13 days since I dropped out of college, moved to Marbella, and went all in on business. And these have been some of the longest days of my life, but also some of the best. And my goal by the end of this video is to essentially show you my perspective on the entire journey of moving out, where I was, and I guess where I am now, at least mentally. For those of you that don't know what I do, I run a coaching business and I also run a management agency. I essentially train sales reps, which is appointment setters, and I place them into teams that sell programs, courses, or whatever it is, and just help them grow. Within the management, I kind of just manage, hire, fire sales reps, like closers, setters, and all that other stuff. Now, the reason I tell you this is because this will be applicable down the line when I kind of break down what's been going on and, the entire story as a whole. The first thing I want to kind of talk about is my entire experience dropping out and, leaving people behind and everything. A lot of you would think, dropping out was super difficult. It was definitely scary, but I wouldn't even say it was that difficult. There was one main thing that stood out, and I don't think you guys will really guess it. It was essentially leaving the people I just met. Like the friends. I would argue I'm pretty good at networking and talking to people, meeting new people. But the main thing that stunted me was making friends with these group of people in my comp sci course, because I did computer science first year. And after not even into the first semester, finishing the first semester, I decide, okay, I'm leaving. These are people I expected and I mentally believed I'd be with for the next 3-4 years, people I would grow with and, go on different endeavors with. I was really excited to have these people around me because they're a very, very cool group of people. A big mental shift was kind of understanding that I could leave them, and obviously it would be shitty, but I would be able to meet other cool people because of the nature of who I am. It took me a while to understand that I can do it, especially alone. And I believe it was a matter of subconscious pressure as well. If you're in college or university, people always say, who's the first one to drop out? Who's going to be the first one to drop out? That guy's going to drop out. That guy's going to drop out. I didn't want to be the first, but I was definitely one of the first. And to understand that business was going well, but I was deciding to leave everything behind and go even harder when things weren't going insane was also taking a leap, and everything is a leap of faith. We forget to understand as humans that we have entire control of our fate and of our future. You determine what you do. And after this video, there will be some people that go and they go doom scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, and I'm a victim. I've done the same, and I do the same once in a while. But there will be people who choose to do that, go to sleep, say, I didn't do anything today, and do the same thing again tomorrow. There's always going to be people like that. And I've been that person. And once in a while I am that person, but I realized I can determine my fate. I can say, okay, college isn't for me and I want to do something else. But we have total control of who we are and what we do. And there's a very good saying, I don't remember it specifically, but being put in a bad situation is unfortunate, but choosing to stay in that situation is your fault. If you do not leave that situation, it is now your fault. And most people need to understand that, because I've only recently understood it. It's changed my life. So dropping out as a whole was difficult for reasons you wouldn't think it would be. It was subconscious reasons, but it was also leaving people you've recently met that you perceived and pre-framed in your mind as friends you'd be friends with for a long, long period of time. The next thing I want to talk about is the experience of moving out and, with family and also personal friends, not just college friends, but all these things. Initially, when I told my parents, it got them very off guard because I was doing decent in college. Like I said, comp sci first year. I was getting, 65, 70 in exams. I wasn't doing great by any means, but I was multitasking. I was managing multiple things at once. It did catch them by surprise, saying, hey, I'm dropping out of college was one thing, but telling them I'm also moving out was another thing. Telling my mom was tough because, obviously leaving your mom and having to tell her something like that is a very difficult thing to do. Telling my dad was not as difficult. If you watch videos and for whatever reason you know where my parents are from, they're from Moldova. It's a very, very poor place, and they took the leap of faith of leaving Moldova and coming to Ireland and coming to Galway and changing their lives essentially so their kids could have better futures. And now I've gone and done the same. So I believe in a way my dad saw the vision and he saw that I did do it so I could grow as a person. And he understood that and he respected that. Now there was always the aspect of what if this doesn't go right, or what about college, or all these other things, because they expected me to stay in college for a couple of years. But I told him I could always go back to it, and college would also wait for me. It would always wait for me. But business, not so much, and it was something I had to take the leap of faith on. I mean, it's been 13 days, so it's probably been about 20, 25, 30 days since I've had this conversation, but it feels like a year ago. It feels like 2 years ago. There were a few different aspects. There was telling my little brother that was difficult. My older brother wasn't too difficult at all. He understood the vision. My dad wasn't too difficult. My mom was not difficult, but also if you know a little bit of my lore, you know I have a girlfriend, and now we're currently doing long distance. So that as well, having to tell her and having to make her understand that it is the right thing for me to do and this is the right thing for growth. Fortunately, she's very supportive, but you can imagine it's not an easy thing to do. And the come up to that was honestly terrifying, having to say, hey, you know, this is what I'm going to do. Telling my mom as well was quite deep because we argued a lot near the end. And this was before me telling her anything. We went to Paris, for example. And if you know my parents or you know my family or any of my background, you know we are not wealthy by any means. But when we did go to Paris, my mom got very cheap accommodation. And, you know, we were so far away from the city that it would take an hour to get there by taxi and an hour back. And you can imagine the price of just transportation as in itself. You'd have to take 3 buses to the city, or a tram and a bus and another bus or whatever. But it was like €100 up and €100 back with the taxi. So it built a lot of complications where we would talk about or just argue about taxis or whatever it is. And my mom kind of blamed me for that, even though I offered to do the accommodation and figure that out for her. So that was not a fun experience, arguing about these things like Paris. And I'm not going to get too much into the trip, but her friends missed the flight at the end. We went to the airport, they didn't have their passport tickets. So they missed their flight, my mom's friends, and they blamed my mom. So my mom was in a very shitty state where she felt like she was at blame, but she also felt like I was at blame for random things, even though I'm obviously going to argue I wasn't. Maybe I was, I don't know, I don't believe I was. But there were a lot of arguments of her just, you know, either shouting at me or having these conversations and not being abusive. I'm not going to say that, but just having arguments that built complications and led to her saying, leave, like move out. And that is not why I moved out. I want you to understand that is not why I moved out. That wasn't even a tiny aspect of me moving out. That didn't affect me, and I know she didn't mean it. And for those of you watching, I just want you to know I have a great relationship with my mom. And we call every 2-3 days. We're calling today. We speak on a very consistent basis, and now leaving, I understood that we'd also have a stronger connection and argue a lot less. I mean, we all do things for greed and for ourselves, but I'd like to believe there was a bigger vision here. Not just myself, but just understanding that I could do a lot for my family. And I'll break that down in this way. I told my little brother when he does well in classes in school, because he's like 12, 13 now, I said, I will fly you out and I'll get you like a really good Airbnb. And if you know anything about where I'm staying or the apartment I'm in or the people I'm with, we are not in an expensive place. We pay $500 per month each. It's $1,500 for the month, so $500 per month each for, you know, a bed. It is not a bad place to live. But when my little brother and my mom comes, I don't want to put them in a spot like this because it's not bad at all. It's even more than they would expect, I assume. But I'd want to put them in a better place than I am. So no matter, you know, how much money I make or whatever it is, you're not going to see me go and blow some crazy amount of money on a Birkin bag or some stupid shit. Whatever I have, I want my parents to have more of that. So if I buy a meal for €5 or €5, I want my parents to get a meal for €10 or €15. At least that's the way I play it out in my head. I want to give my little brother that experience too. My little brother was also difficult though, because he understood that his older brother would be leaving and moving out. And I guess in your mind, when you're that young, they're just leaving you behind. And he did cry, I'll be honest, he did cry and he got really upset about it, which kind of fucked me a little bit. But I did tell him, like I mentioned, when he did well, I'd fly him out, I'd bring him to Marbella. So ideally there's some motivation for him to study there, unlike I had. But it was a tough situation to be in. It was a tough spot to be in, to understand that I'd be leaving college and I'd be leaving friends and family and, you know, your girlfriend and your personal friends. At least for me, was not a difficult adjustment. I did tell them, hey, I'm going to move out, but they were already so used to me leaving once in a while. For example, I went to Budapest with my girlfriend for a month and we lived in an apartment. My parents never worried about my sustainability or living alone or anything, first of all. But second of all, my friends understood that I've gone to places and I would have been fine, but also they expected me to kind of come back, which maybe now they understand I will maybe visit, but I'm not going to move back home. At least I don't hope so. And for them, it wasn't a crazy deal, and not in a bad way, but it was just in a way where they understood my vision. They understood I was one of those people that wouldn't really stick out in college, and they saw that I wanted more than just college. So they were supportive. I offered to bring one of them with me as well, but they didn't want to. So that in itself wasn't a difficult adjustment. You know, moving out, dropping out, they were not very easy things to do. There was a little bit of stress behind it, as you can imagine, especially with people and situations I was in and everything, especially with, you know, all the deeper stuff. But friends as a whole, like actual friends, not college friends, was not difficult. It was probably one of the easier things. Now, the third thing I want to go on to is the mental adjustment to, you know, moving out. Because moving out mentally is a very weird thing. It depends on the location you're in and, the atmosphere and the people around you and everything. But when I came to Marbella, I will admit, I obviously had ego. We all have ego. I still have ego. But to be performing, I come from a small city. When you perform at a decent rate, whether you make 5K per month, 10K per month, 20K per month, it's all very good. But when you do that in a small city, people perceive you as if you're the top percentile, as if you've made it. And when you come to Marbella, from that atmosphere, you obviously have a little bit of ego behind you. So I came to Marbella and I've seen all this wealth around me, people in super yachts, people with expensive cars, Porsche 911s. But just seeing all this wealth, all these cars around me, and seeing all these individuals who perform at a higher standard than I do, I understood that I wasn't shit and that I was literally a nobody, which is good. Funny enough, it's very good to put yourself in that state of mind because you understand. Fitness-wise, first of all, the gym we go to, the Real Padel Club, if you know about it, it's one of the main gyms in Marbella. It was €155 for 2 months, so about €77.50, like $85, $90 maybe. It wasn't too cheap, but it also wasn't too expensive. But when you go there, the standard of fitness is like a very good physique in a hometown. So it's like they say, whenever you go to Texas, everything is bigger, I should say. But whenever you go to Marbella or one of these wealthy cities, everything is on crack. Like the minimum physique requirement or standard is way higher. The minimum amount of wealth is way higher. And when you put yourself in this atmosphere of people that are outperforming you and running laps around you in fitness, in health, financially, in every other aspect of life, you start to understand, okay, I need to get more serious about what I'm doing and if I actually want to. So the adjustment here was quite weird because everybody around you had ego. So when I'd go to that gym, obviously my ego would drop a little bit every time. But when I'd be training or, walking through, there'd be people like bumping into each other or not giving a fuck or whatever it is, walking around like they're millions of dollars or something. It did annoy me a little bit because you have people that treat everybody else like shit and think they're the best, and they also idolize women to an extent. It's just a matter of wealth. People see an attractive woman and then they think they're the shit, and then every guy is like trying to get her or whatever it is, and she now feels like she's on a pedestal because she is. There's a lot of that here. I guess you could call that degeneracy as a whole. But I didn't like a lot of that. I didn't like a lot of those aspects. I didn't like the negative environment that I portrayed in my own mind in the gym. And it did take, 8, 9, 10 days to get adjusted to that. And now I'm in a position where I can go to the gym and I can say, oh, fuck it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if people think they're the shit. It doesn't matter if people are bumping into each other. I don't care. Even like the most annoying thing for me is like getting bumped into one of these guys who think they're the shit. It's just a little subconscious thing in my mind that pisses me off. But now I don't really care. I've kind of adjusted to it. Not that it did happen often at all, but I've adjusted to it now where I'm like, okay, these are just fucking dudes. Like, this is just how it is around here. It's become the normal. It's become the standard. And the only reason I mention it is because it's something that feels so unique to me. It feels like something a lot of people don't really experience, so I figured I would mention it. Also, barely leaving the house. Like, recently, we've been very consistent with the gym. The food quality has been good. We've been working long, I'd argue maybe 12-hour days. We've been working a lot, and we've been barely leaving the house. We have left the house like 4 or 5 times, whether to go to a restaurant and back in a taxi, because we'd split it 3 ways, so it'd be like €3 there, €3 back, get the food, come back, just continue work. We've done that about 3 times. We've gone to the beach about 1 time, and I think we went to a shop another time. So about 5 times we have left the accommodation in 13 days, which is okay, it's not that bad. But it would literally be for like an hour or 2 max, and then come back, just continue doing work. We have not even gone to the main city yet. We've not done a lot of these things, but I have a buddy coming down in about a week. A friend of mine, he's a growth operator. If you know what growth operation is, he basically runs coaching businesses for people, does everything for them, and takes like a percentage of the money they make. They make 100K in the month, he'll get 30K, right? He's gonna come down, sleep on the couch, this couch exactly. And we're just maybe gonna do more stuff when he's around. Maybe go to the main city, because we have yet to do that. The old town as well. There's a lot of cool things we definitely need to hit up. As of now, the priority has just been working for the last 2 weeks. And performance-wise, I've done, I would say, a lot of good things. And this is why I kind of mentioned the coaching initially. Because a lot of these are to do with developing my coaching business and helping more people essentially get trained in, make money, and change their lives. But recently, I've re-recorded the training modules for my students. I've signed up a couple of new students and clients. I've onboarded them. I've launched a new training module called the SDR Mastery, which is like dialing instead of DM setting. I've kind of started building my own landing page, which is a website where people can watch the video I'm about to talk about and then book in a call with me if they like. And actually, I believe 2 people have watched my content. I'll throw it in the bio if you want to watch, but if you want to learn appointment setting for free, and go to my other channel. Some people have gone through that material and then decided they want to maybe work one-on-one with me. Then they booked in a call with me, and we got onboarded. But also, I've been creating an in-depth video where I kind of break down how I went from 0 to 6K per month with appointment setting. And it's a very detailed video where I talk about a lot of things. I talk about some students. I talk about the entire process, the journey of being, you know, the 14, 15-year-old making money and then losing it all and then coming back. And it's an interesting story, and it's a very good one. Like I mentioned, I think it's called a VSL. I'll post it here too in a couple days ideally, but I've been working a lot on just building these things and doing them very well, because it's one thing to make something quickly, but it's another thing to make something quickly and also very good. And when you try to make something very good and you try to maximize your energy on it, it's very tiring. So a lot of the time that I've been using has been to develop these things and do stuff for, you know, management clients and all these other things. But past couple of days, I've been doing what I'm kind of breaking down now. I'm excited to see what comes with this trip. I have a couple more calls where I can onboard more students and clients and hit an all-time high month. I think I will do anywhere from 12, 13, I would say maybe 15K this month max, based on how we're looking. Next month, I definitely want to touch at least 10. I'm offboarding a management client because he's just been disrespectful, avoiding DMs, being a scumbag, not wanting to pay me on time, treating the sales reps really poorly, and it's just someone I do not want to work with. My other client is an academic offer. He helps people get a higher GPA. He went from a 2.0 to a 4.0 GPA in a couple months, and that is his main mission. And when you work with people like that, you realize you get to really change lives, and that is now what I envision myself doing. If I want to stay in the e-learning and the info space, which is like courses, programs, all these other things where you can learn something online, I want to work with people where there is a vision to change more lives. Money doesn't really matter. And you'll hear me say it all the time, and some of you will believe me, some of you won't, but I don't really care how much money I get, I should say. Obviously, there's also the mental milestone of achieving 30K per month or 40K per month, but that is not crazy. If you ever see me post it on a YouTube video, it's more so like to just get, you know, a higher click-through rate or get more people to watch it. It's never going to be with the intention of showing off. At the end of the day, I don't really care too much. It's not how much you make, it's what you do with the money. Whether you save it, whether you help your parents out. And I want that to be a big thing for me. I want to get my mom something very good. I mentioned this in the last video for her birthday. And not so much to kind of say, hey, you know, like I'm making it now or whatever, but more so to say, it's okay, I'm doing all right, you can trust me. And kind of put their mind at ease subconsciously, but also just give her something really good for her birthday. When I was younger, I had a lot of money and then I wouldn't have a lot of money, and I'd do all these random things. So there would be birthdays where I'd get her something very nice, and then there would be birthdays where I'd get her something very shitty. And I want to kind of make up for that and get her something really nice. That is, you know, maybe quite expensive. Probably not a Birkin bag. Yeah, I think she'd probably give it to the secondhand shop by mistake, but something where she would just appreciate and, you know, it would actually make a difference to her and help her realize that I'm doing okay. I guess that's what parents always worry about. Are my kids doing okay? As a whole, the adjustment to Marbella has been interesting. It's not necessarily been difficult. I think the more difficult part was coming up here and having to say goodbye and kind of end paths with college friends and all these different things. But I'm excited to see what comes. It's been a very interesting journey so far. We've been working pretty hard, and I'm excited to reap the rewards of, you know, everything. I'll keep you guys updated. You know, if you're watching this, make sure to subscribe if you come to the end. That way, you know, you actually get to watch more of the content and stay updated. I don't want to be in a position where you say, oh, that guy had a good channel, and then you just never find the channel again. So make sure to subscribe, and you can watch the other videos. I always suggest watching the first one if you want to learn a bit more about me. There's some pretty good stuff in there. This was just very little structure to this video. It was an entire breakdown on my perspective, which I think is quite interesting. I like to see people's perspectives on things. Hopefully you enjoyed. You know, like I said, leave a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.